Who you gonna call? Lewis Cooper. Hi everyone. I've just, well, not just, a few hours ago, I went to see Ghostbusters Afterlife, the new Ghostbusters movie. And it's funny because when I first started doing movie reviews, the first movie I ever reviewed was Ghostbusters 2016. And here I am reviewing another Ghostbusters movie 5 years later. What a long time that is. I'm a pretty big Ghostbusters guy. In fact, bear with. This is my Ghostbusters Ecto 1 Lego thing, which I haven't done a video about just because I just couldn't be bothered, but it's pretty cool. Yeah, so that's based on the one in the new movie, which is obviously the same one, but you know, the design and that, you know what I mean. Anyway, yeah, I'm a big Ghostbusters guy. For me, as a kid, I was mainly into the comics that they did based off of the real Ghostbusters animated series, and a little bit of the series. I don't remember watching it that much, because back when you know, growing up in the 90s, that you just kind of watch whatever was on TV, and you might see something some weeks, and then you wouldn't another week. But I remember reading the comics that were probably my brother's like annuals and stuff like that. And I've just always liked Ghostbusters. I didn't watch the film as much when I was a kid, the first film especially, because I found it quite scary. I don't think my parents would have let me watch it. And then when I watched it when I was a little bit older, I was quite scared of it because, you know, it is pretty much a horror movie. It's just funny. But then watching it as an adult, I've had a newfound appreciation for it. So even more so. So yeah, I'm a pretty big Ghostbusters guy. And you know, a lot of people don't like the second one, but I like it. A lot of people don't like the 2016 one, but I liked it. You know, not my favourite, but I didn't hate it. And going into this one, I was expecting. I keep using this example, but I have to mention it to people. But I was expecting like The Force Awakens, but Ghostbusters. You know, just kind of a soft reboot with newer characters, but with enough old stuff for like the older fans, such as myself. And that's exactly what it was. So you know, it was exactly what I expected it to be, and yeah, it's absolutely fine. It was reasonably enjoyable. Normally, I go and see films in IMAX because, especially with the way things are at the moment, I like IMAX because I like the experience of a bigger, louder screen, bigger, louder sound and screen. That makes sense. But I went ScreenX this time just because of timing, and it wasn't busy, so that was good. But I've never been to ScreenX before. If you don't know what it is, it's where you have the normal screen and then it kind of comes down the side, so it's just kind of a bigger picture. And I always thought it was a bit of a silly gimmick thing, and it is. You know, it didn't really add or subtract anything from my viewing experience. I just watched the film, so that was fine. But I can't help but think maybe if I'd seen it in IMAX, it would have made a better impression on me. Also, it wasn't busy in there. There was like 4 other people, which is great. But one woman in there kept coughing all the time, which I really don't need right now in a pandemic, and it really irritated me. But luckily, she was really far behind me. Otherwise, I probably would have left. But yeah, that may have detracted from my enjoyment. But overall, I did quite enjoy it. I'll get into a bit more details. No spoilers, by the way. Don't worry about that. You're safe to watch this if you haven't seen the film. So yeah, I'd say this is essentially a kids film because it's kind of introducing kids to this franchise, or what they're probably hoping will become a franchise. I guess Ghostbusters is a franchise, but not in the sense where, you know, Star Wars is a franchise. We've got multiple things branching out, and with so a kids film, but with a lot of nostalgia and callbacks for the adults. And it doesn't go too hard on the callbacks. It's not like every second, here's a thing you recognise from the previous films, but there's a little bit of that. There's one bit where someone delivers a line that's just really awkward and feels a bit forced, and I kind of, you know, but whatever. It doesn't bother me that much. The story's pretty nice. They tie it into the old films probably as best as you could, really. And I quite like that part of it, but they use that to introduce the newer characters. There's a younger cast. I can't remember the name of the main girl in it, but her brother is played by Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things, what he's best known for, and it's their mum. And Paul Rudd is in it as well, who's playing Paul Rudd, which is great because he's always Paul Rudd and he's always great. And I really like the younger cast. The main girl, McKenna Grace, I think her name is. I could be wrong there. I will correct myself if I am. She was really good. I mean, she's 15, and to have this big movie pretty much centering around her as the main character is really impressive. Like, none of the kid characters annoyed me or felt like they weren't necessary, kind of thing. There's one called Podcast, which was a big thing online when people found out there's a character called Podcast, and he was the one who you think might be irritating, but he didn't bother me at all, kind of thing. Later on in the film, it does try to kind of get to your emotions a bit, which is a pretty easy sell for me, because if it's something I'm quite nostalgic about and I have a lot of fond memories of, it's pretty easy to get me kind of emotionally, and it did a little bit, but it still felt a little bit superficial. I wasn't quite as invested in it to kind of really get caught up in it, but again, I don't mean that in a bad way, like it just didn't quite click with me as such, and I do kind of feel that maybe I was a little bit, uncomfortable in what I was watching. That might have added to it, and I do think there's moments in this where I would love to have watched it with a crowd of people, like before, before the world being the way it is now, because now that's not what I want. But even if I'd seen it kind of in IMAX and it'd been bigger and bolder and there'd been more people around to get more of a reaction, kind of a group thing, there probably would have been certain moments that would have felt more impactful. But as it was, I was just kind of like, oh, that's cool, rather than, there was no big like, yeah, kind of moments kind of thing. But again, that's a bit mixed. But yeah, I think overall I found it enjoyable, but nothing particularly special. But again, exactly what I expected it to be, really. I think it's worth a watch if you're a Ghostbusters fan. There's enough callbacks and stuff in there, and it's nice to see certain things that and you remember, and people. Because I'm not spoiling anything, but you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I think for kids, I think it's probably a good way of kind of getting into the movies, and there is a few moments where it's a bit kind of heavy going. Well, not in that sense, but it is essentially like they did with Force Awakens, kind of a remake of the original film. It is more or less more or less the same story, just in a different setting. And there are a few moments that are a bit kind of probably scary for kids. Like, there's quite a few jumpy bits. Like, I'm pretty experienced with jumpy films, and I saw it coming, kind of thing. And I was like, right, here it comes. But I imagine for kids there might be a few scary moments, like in the original film. There's no weird ghost dream sex scene though in this one, which is probably the right call to make. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, watch the original Ghostbusters again. It's weird. There is a fun little kind of mid-credit scene, and then there's an end-credit scene, which again, I won't spoil anything, I won't give any context at all, but the end-credit scene had a totally different tone to the rest of the film, I felt, and it made me kind of think, I wish the whole film was like that. And I kind of get it wouldn't fit with what they're going for with this film, but also, for me personally, I would have loved that. It was a bit more, I don't know, again, I won't give any context, but like, it was a bit more kind of more grown up, I guess, which is probably why it appealed to me a bit more. And again, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's a kids movie, but with a bit of nostalgia for adults, and I found it pretty enjoyable. If you're a Ghostbusters fan, you'll probably find it enjoyable too. If you're a kid, you're probably not watching this, because why do you care what a 35-year-old man has to say about it? 25-year-old man has to say about it. But yeah, anyway, thanks for watching. Leave a thumbs up or whatever, or a thumbs down, I don't care. Do it if you want. No one sees them anymore anyway, so yeah. Anyway, Merry Christmas.